Hello, this is Jane Dennison, is going to be presenting for us, giving us a bit of an introduction about herself and her own sort of experience with having two teenagers, and also is going to talk to us from Empower You, My All Shy Club, How Fit Are You, talking about some of the advantages of physical exercise at this very difficult time that we're in. Go ahead, Jane.
Brilliant. Thank you, Dania. But just to specify, I'm not going to start asking you how much physical exercise that you do, because I know that will freak out a lot of people. And to be quite honest, I'm not keeping as active as really I should be, given that I'm a personal trainer. So a little bit about me. As I mentioned at the beginning, which I think is highly relevant, I've got two teenage daughters, a 17 and a 15-year-old, and I was 21 when I became a mum for the first time. So I think that certainly goes some way to give me some experience of speaking at this event, because I've been through the trials and tribulations of having teenage girls, and dare I say it, I'm still in the middle of them. My day jobs, I have a few day jobs. So I'm a mental health first aid instructor, and what that means is that I can teach people how to qualify as mental health first aiders. So that gives you an idea of what to do if you come across someone in a mental health crisis, someone who may be thinking about taking their own life, a work colleague who might be suffering from depression. With my other hat on, I work for a service in Trafford called Empower You, and my job title is a lifestyle coach, but just to sort of differentiate between the cheesy life coach, it's nothing like that. Essentially what I do is I work with people who have disabilities in Trafford, and I help them get more active in the community. So at the moment I'm working on bringing exercise sessions to people who are visually impaired using Zoom and conference calls. So we've got yoga starting and Tai Chi next week to 4 people who are completely blind, and we're going to just go for it and just give it a go. But we've done this for people with hearing impairments, and we've got a massive online program at the moment during lockdown for people with a variety of disabilities, wheelchair users, learning disabilities, that sort of thing. And then with my final hat on, I feel really sorry for my husband, I'm not mentioning him at all, but with my final hat on, I also started a beginner running club 4 years ago, and it's called the My All Shy Club. And it's a running club that isn't aimed at people who can already run. It's aimed at people who want to get fitter, who want to give running a try for the first time, or maybe have not run for many years and want to get back into it. It's really a fun social club with what we say, it's like a drinking club, or a run. What's the phrase I use? It's a club with a running problem. That's what we say about our running club, because it's great. Anyway, we've done pretty well as a club. We've got over 1,000 members. We're in Old Trafford, Urmston, Sale. I've been on the BBC a few times. I've been on the Radio 5 a few times, won a few awards. I think that my proudest award was Coach of the Year, Greater Manchester Coach of the Year, that I won in 2018. Anyway, enough about me. So the question for this presentation was, how fit are you? And when I talk about fitness, I don't just mean physical fitness, as I said earlier. I mean also your mental fitness. And why do I ask that question? Well, the reason being is because if you are not physically and mentally fit, then how are you going to look after someone who might be experiencing issues themselves? If you can't figure out how to take care of yourself, how are you going to realistically put yourself in a position to help others? Now, as it happens, very conveniently, it's National Self-Care Week this week. So this session is very much focused on looking at ways in which you can look after yourself better. Now, the reason for this is because I'd like you to imagine that you've got what we're going to call like a container, okay? And in that container, so you've got this big container, imagine it in your head. You're going to put all those stresses that happen to you in your life. So it might be kids worrying about lockdown, it might be a divorce, God forbid, or it might be moving house, or it might be job worries or money worries. There's a whole host of things in life that can stress us out. You've got this container, and that container fills up with these worries, okay? Now, to try and reduce the amount of worries in this container, imagine a little tap at the bottom, and you can turn on that tap and you can release some of that stress with helpful coping strategies. Okay, so some helpful coping strategies to help you with stress. Obviously, I'm going to go down the physical fitness route. Clearly, getting outside and doing a bit of physical fitness, a walk, a jog if you can. I would say, I mean, my homework for everyone at my running club during the second lockdown was simply get outside every day, because you don't need to be a runner to be physically fit. You can go for a walk, you can get out in the fresh air and practice your mindfulness. So mindfulness, buzzword, we've heard it before. Mindfulness is one of those things where you look at certain things outside. So for example, this morning I was out at 7 a.m. walking the dogs, and I could hear all the birds around me, but I couldn't see them. So I stopped and I just had a quick look to see if I could recognize the birds. And thanks to my husband's help, he's very good at teaching me about blue tits and blackbirds, because I know nothing about birds. And actually I've benefited a lot from an emotional mental health perspective just from being able to recognize birds. And even just going off on a tangent, apologies for this, there is an app you can download for free called BirdNet, and you can identify what type of birds you're actually walking past by their voice. So that's very interesting. But anyway, so getting that physical fitness. Other coping strategies. How about creativeness? How many of you are creative? Are you doing anything at home on a night time instead of watching TV? Now, some suggestions. I love anything like knitting and sewing, embroidery. I'm a big fan of the cross stitch, but also things like calligraphy. You could give that a go. Online on Amazon, there are so many different calligraphy sets. Just behind me, there's an artist. There's one of his pictures on my wall, and what he does is called Rob Ryan, in case you know him. He actually cuts out pictures. It's called paper cutting. And this is actually a thing that you can do at home. You can cut out your own pictures at home. And there's sets, again, that you can buy online. Amazon, just go check them out. They're really inexpensive. And it's a really sort of creative way to help release some of that stress in that container that you've got. Now, everyone's container, the size of their container is different. You might actually have a huge container. You might be really good at dealing with stress, or you might have a really small container. You might not be very good at dealing with stress. But either way, I suggest you look at these helpful coping strategies. Okay. Now, there are some unhelpful coping strategies that I must mention, because it would be wrong of me not to. One of those that we love in this country, and Australia is the only other country that can claim to be as excited as we are about alcohol. Unfortunately, alcohol in this country isn't great, particularly there's a big problem with middle-aged women and men in this country who use it as a way to relax in an evening. Now, I'm not perfect. I enjoy having a drink on a night, but in some cases, it's not a helpful coping strategy to release that stress. Why? Okay, the recommended government allowance for each week is 14 units of alcohol spread over 3 to 4 days, ideally. But the truth is, there is no safe drinking limit, okay? Whenever you take a drink of alcohol, you're putting yourself at risk. And you're putting yourself at risk of the physical health issues, so your risk of cancers goes up, that sort of thing. But also it affects your sleep. Now, if you haven't got sleep in your helpful coping strategies, then how are you going to cope with what life throws at you? It also increases levels of anxiety. Drinking can increase levels of anxiety, particularly the day after when you wake up and you're hungover and you're feeling a bit rubbish. It affects your ability to cope with your day. So if you're using that as a coping strategy, please look at something a little bit more healthy. And instead of reaching for that glass of wine, go reach for something like, I don't know, a piece of sewing. Christmas is on the way. Make some stockings for someone that you know. I'm in a crazy phase at the moment of making dog bandanas. Don't judge me, but I just love it. I just love it. I could probably open a shop with the amount of dog bandanas that I've got at the moment in my house. So we've talked about this stress container. So I want to talk just a little bit further, just to think about something called a happiness hour. What's a happiness hour? Well, it ties into that self-care. And I want to challenge you once a day to find a whole hour to do something just for you. And isn't it funny how when I say that, you're probably sat there now thinking, there is no way I can spare an hour to do what I want to do each day. And I totally understand that. And when I've mentioned this to other people, they've said, well, I got 15 minutes in. Now, 15 minutes is better than nothing, but the gold standard is an hour. And isn't it funny how when we take time out for ourselves, we feel really, really selfish? Isn't that wrong? Isn't that crazy? Isn't it wrong that when we're at work, we actually take pride in just how busy we are, how many extra hours we're ploughing in at work? I used to work at law firms. I've worked at big international law firms, and the amount of people who just stayed by their desks all day, all night in some cases, and it would be a sense of achievement. It would be, well done, you've really worked hard. They're not going to make it to retirement with a healthy heart. You know, they really put themselves in that sort of, well, I'm due for promotion because I've worked crazy hours. This is not a healthy way of living, and it's an attitude in society we have to get out of. So, happiness hour. Make sure you dedicate an hour of your day to doing something for you. I absolutely believe you will feel less stressed out if you do something like this. Okay? I think that's pretty much my talk over, but I totally want to hear about anyone who's got any sort of helpful coping strategies. And I know this is a conference about families, and it's important to note that a lot of my work has been with young people, and a young person looks to adults, parents in particular, and my youngest daughter's adopted, so this has been a particular thing throughout bringing her up. You know, they use their adults as a role model. And do you want to be a role model that says to your child, you can work long hours in the office? Or do you want to set the example that actually, no, you know what, it is okay to leave those dishes by the side and take an hour to read a book, or do whatever makes you happy, go out for an hour and walk around the block. Meet a friend. It's still legal at the moment to go and meet a friend during the second lockdown. 2 people are allowed to go out together. So I'd leave you on that thought. Think about yourself setting the example to the young people in your life. Thank you very much.
Thank you.